drive, using it as a way to unwind after a long day. As she made her way down a dark stretch of highway, she noticed a set of headlights in her rearview mirror. The car was tailgating her aggressively, flashing its high beams intermittent. At first, Emily tried to ignore the annoying behavior, hoping the driver would eventually pass her. But the car remained right behind her, its headlights blinding her through the mirror. She felt a pang of anxiety, but she reassured herself that it was just a frustrated driver. After several miles, Emily decided to pull over at a rest stop to let the tailgater pass. She parked her car and got out, stretching her legs and taking a deep breath. The other car pulled in behind her, and the driver, a man in his mid-40s, got out and approached her. "Hey, what's your problem?" he demanded, his voice angry and aggressive. "You're driving too slow." Emily was taken aback by his hostility. She tried to explain that she was just driving at the speed limit and that he could easily pass her. But the man wasn't interested in reasoning. He continued to berate her, his anger escalating. Suddenly, the situation took a terrifying turn. The man's demeanor changed abruptly from angry to menacing. He began to make threatening remarks, saying things like, "You have no idea what I'm capable." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She realized that she was in a dangerous situation and needed to leave quickly. She attempted to get back into her car, but the man blocked her path, insisting that they settle the issue right then and there. Emily's heart raced as she fumbled for her phone, trying to call the police. The man noticed her attempt and grew more aggressive, demanding that she stop and talk to him. Desperate, Emily managed to get into her car and lock the doors. She started the engine and drove off, the tailgater following closely behind. The man's car was right on her bumper, and his high beams remained on, blinding her and making it difficult to see the road. Emily drove as fast as she could, trying to put as much distance between herself and the man as possible. The tailgater remained relentless, maintaining the same aggressive pace. She could see him in her rearview mirror, his face contorted with rage. In a panic, Emily took a series of sharp turns, hoping to lose the tailgater. She sped through winding roads and narrow streets, but the man's car stayed close, refusing to give up. The chase seemed to go on forever, and Emily's fear only intensified. Finally, she spotted a police car parked on the side of the road. Emily pulled over and frantically flagged down the officer. The police car pulled out and intercepted the tailgater, who was apprehended and taken into custody. The officer assured Emily that she was safe and offered to escort her home. Emily's experience left her shaken, and she couldn't shake the image of the enraged driver from her mind. She later learned that the man had a history of violent behavior and had been involved in several similar incidents. The road rage encounter was a terrifying reminder of how quickly a seemingly ordinary situation could escalate into something dangerous and frightening. Story 2. The Phantom Road Rage. David was driving back from a weekend getaway, enjoying the scenic route home. It was a beautiful evening, and the setting sun cast a warm glow over the countryside. He had just passed a small town and was on a stretch of highway with minimal traffic. As he cruised down the highway, David noticed a black SUV in his rearview mirror. The vehicle was traveling at a high speed and seemed to be closing in on him rapidly. David was puzzled by the SUV's aggressive driving but tried to stay calm. He moved to the right lane, allowing the SUV to pass. To David's surprise, the SUV slowed down and positioned itself directly behind him, tailgating aggressively. The driver flashed his high beams and honked his horn repeatedly. David's anxiety grew as he tried to make sense of the situation. He wondered if he had inadvertently angered the driver or if something else was going on. Despite David's attempts to ignore the tailgater and maintain a safe speed, the SUV continued to harass him. The driver seemed determined to provoke a reaction. David tried to stay calm and focused on the road, but the aggressive behavior of the SUV made it difficult. After several minutes of relentless tailgating, the SUV suddenly swerved into the left lane and pulled up alongside David's car. The driver, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, rolled down his window and shouted something that David couldn't quite hear over the roar of the engine. David felt a surge of fear as the man's angry gestures became more intense. He couldn't understand what the driver wanted or why he was so enraged. The SUV began to dangerously maneuver around David's car, cutting him off and forcing him to swerve to avoid a collision. Feeling trapped and terrified, David decided to take a different route to shake off the aggressive driver. He exited the highway and drove through a series of rural roads, hoping to lose the SUV. The man in the SUV followed closely, his behavior becoming increasingly erratic. As David navigated the twisting roads, he noticed something unsettling. The SUV seemed to be more than just an aggressive driver. It appeared to have a presence of its own, as if it were guided by a malevolent. The vehicle's headlights seemed to follow him, and the driver's actions grew more unpredictable. In a moment of panic, David sped down a narrow road that led to a small, deserted area. He hoped that the unfamiliar terrain would deter the SUV from following. To his horror, the SUV maintained its pursuit, refusing to back off. David finally reached a secluded spot and pulled over, hoping to confront the driver and explain that he meant no harm. As he got out of his car, he saw the SUV approaching slowly. The man behind the wheel had a chillingly blank expression, and his eyes seemed devoid of emotion. When the SUV came to a stop, David approached cautiously. The driver rolled down his window, but instead of engaging in conversation, he simply stared at David with an unsettling gaze. David felt an overwhelming sense of dread and decided to retreat to his car. As he was getting back into his vehicle, the SUV suddenly sped off into the night, disappearing into the darkness. David was left shaken and confused by the encounter. He reported the incident to the police, but no trace of the SUV or its driver could be found. David's encounter with the Phantom Road Rage driver remained a haunting experience. The aggressive behavior and eerie presence of the CEA left him with a profound sense of unease. He was left to ponder the true nature of the encounter and the possibility that there are forces beyond comprehension lurking on the roads. Story 3 does a roadside menace. Lisa had been driving for hours, heading back from a weekend visit to her family. She was exhausted and eager to get home. The highway was mostly empty, with only the occasional vehicle passing by. The sun had set, and the only light came from her headlights cutting through the dark. As Lisa drove, she noticed a set of headlights behind her that seemed to be closing in rapidly. She glanced at her rearview mirror and saw a black pickup truck tailgating her aggressively. The driver's high beams were on, making it difficult for Lisa to see clearly. She tried to ignore the aggressive behavior, hoping the driver would eventually pass her. Despite her best efforts to stay calm, the tailgater's presence was unnerving. The truck stayed right on her bumper, its high beams blinding her. Lisa decided to pull over at a rest area to let the truck pass. She parked her car and took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. To her dismay, the truck pulled in behind her and parked in the adjacent spot. Lisa's anxiety grew as she saw the driver, a man in his late 30s with a rugged appearance, get out of the truck and approach her car. He had a grim look on his face and seemed to be fuming with anger. "Hey, what's your problem?" the man shouted as he reached Lisa's window. "You're driving like an idiot." Lisa was taken aback by the man's hostility. She explained that she was just driving at the speed limit and had no intention of provoking anyone. The man's anger, however, was palpable. He continued to berate her, making aggressive gestures and shouting threats. Feeling scared, Lisa decided to call the police. She dialed 911, trying to remain calm as she described the situation. The man seemed to notice her phone call and grew even more agitated. He started banging on her car window and demanding that she get out of the vehicle. Lisa locked her doors and tried to stay inside, but the man was relentless. He continued to pound on the window, his face red with rage. Lisa's heart was racing, and she felt trapped and vulnerable. The situation escalated quickly, and she was terrified of what the man might do next. Suddenly, the man stopped and looked around, as if realizing that he might be caught. He gave Lisa one last threatening glance before getting back into his truck and speeding off. Lisa was left shaken and relieved that the immediate danger had passed. When the police arrived, Lisa gave them a detailed account of the incident. They took her statement and promised to look into the matter. Lisa was advised to be cautious and to report any further incidents if they occurred. Despite the police's assurances, Lisa couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The encounter with the aggressive driver had left her feeling vulnerable and afraid. She continued her journey home, taking extra precautions and avoiding any potential risky situation. A few weeks later, Lisa received a disturbing phone call from the police. They informed her that a similar incident had occurred involving the same black pickup truck. The driver had been identified as a man with a history of violent behavior and had been involved in several road rage incidents. The police explained that the man had been recently released from prison and was known for his unpredictable and dangerous behavior. They advised Lisa to stay alert and to contact them immediately if she saw the truck or if she felt threatened. Lisa's anxiety only intensified with this new information. She began to take extra precautions, avoiding long drives at night and staying vigilant on the road. The fear of encountering the aggressive driver again weighed heavily on her mind. One evening, as Lisa was driving home from work, she noticed a familiar black pickup truck in her rearview mirror. Her heart sank as she recognized the vehicle. The truck was tailgating her aggressively, just as it had before. Lisa's fears surged, and she immediately called the police. She drove cautiously, trying to keep a safe distance from the truck while waiting for the police to arrive. The truck followed closely, its high beams blinding her. Lisa felt a sense of dread as she noticed the truck's erratic driving patterns and the man's intense glare. The police arrived and intercepted the truck. They pulled over the driver, who appeared agitated and defiant. Lisa watched from a safe distance as the police questioned the man and conducted a search of his vehicle. They found evidence that linked him to previous road rage incidents and discovered that he had been violating his parole. The driver was taken into custody, and Lisa was once again assured of her safety. The experience had left her deeply shaken, and she struggled to regain her sense of security. She took additional measures to protect herself and continued to be vigilant on the road. The encounter with the roadside menace had been a terrifying ordeal. Lisa's experience served as a stark reminder of the potential dangers that can arise from road rage and the importance of staying alert and prepared.